Hi, I'm Kelly. Welcome to The Woman Condemned, where we talk about women on death row and those serving life. It's also the only place you'll hear their side of the story straight from their mouth. Today we're going to talk about Morgan Smith, the sex slave killer from Florida. I need to tell you right away that there is some footage I found in the evidence files that might be discomforting or upsetting to some people. I did my very best to block out anything that could be upsetting, but I think it's very important that we include this kind of stuff to serve as a reminder of exactly what can happen when we ignore women's health for too long. Baby Morgan Jane Hughes was born in 1974 in Connecticut. Her early life was ideal, but as she entered young adolescent years and her parents divorced, life became harder to manage. In junior high at Seymour Middle School in Seymour, Connecticut, she told me she endured vicious bullying that had a deep psychological effect on her. By the age of 12, she sought out her first sexual experience with the 17-year-old boy next door and began dabbling in drugs and alcohol. By her 21st birthday, she was already a married mother of a young daughter. She'd been institutionalized for several suicide attempts. The marriage was another abusive situation, and eventually Morgan packed her daughter in a stroller and walked across town back to her parents' home. Strapped for cash and low on opportunity, she went to work at Club International, tending bar and stripping. So that's where she met Daryl Smith, aka Spike. She was 21, he was in his 30s. It was her first night dancing at Club International, and it was also one of the DJ's birthday parties. She just got there, she didn't know anybody, so she felt really special that they invited her to the party when she was a nobody. And then most of the other dancers didn't go, just the boss and the DJs and their wives and friends. And Daryl, or Spike, was the drug dealer for the clientele and the people that worked at the strip club. So she said, now this story has been told on For My Man and Monstresses on A&E, but this is the version she gave me. She told me that she'd had a really bad night. It was a horrible night the night she started. And once she got on stage, it kind of got better, but she saw him staring at her. And then she was sitting at the bar, and he mentioned that they had two of the same tattoos. They both had a barbed wire tattoo. He mentioned it. At first she thought he was just a customer, and then he said no, he was a friend there for the party. They started talking more, and he said that he was there with his girlfriend and they were interested in a threesome. And she said no at first, but then decided that she would because she'd had terrible nights. She was trying to do something new. She was trying to fit into this new club. So she goes to do her dance, and Spike goes to get the girlfriend, but the girlfriend decides she's not attracted to her, so she doesn't want to have the threesome. And Spike ends up giving Morgan a whole bunch of cocaine and kissing her in the DJ booth in front of everybody, and then walking off with his old lady, and that was the end of it. That was the end of the first night. They did start dating, and she fell head over heels in love. Him, not so much. Daryl was not your average drug dealing biker. Oh no, he also had a penchant for BDSM sex, and it took zero effort to get Morgan to comply. There's a reason for her feeble resistance starting as far back as age 14, when she was a student at an all-girls private Catholic school, Laurelton Hall. It was there that she met and had a sexual relationship with the 20-year-old brother of one of her classmates. Then, in her early 20s, after the divorce, she met a man online with similar proclivities. Back to the Spike situation, Morgan never told him about her sexually submissive history, but he guessed it. And she was impressed by that. During the honeymoon phase of their relationship, they'd play master and sub bedroom games, but it slowly developed into a full-blown lifestyle. For Morgan, it was like she finally found her place in the world. She told me she felt useful in the tasks that Daryl would assign her as a slave. She akined it to being a 1950s housewife, that it was that kind of mind frame, that lifestyle. She said that Daryl would assign her chores like she'd have to clean one of his friends' kitchens, or she would have to make him a resume or something like that. She said she liked it, that she enjoyed it, and she felt useful in it. And living that way felt like she'd finally found her place. She found a lot of validation in a website called seekingdiscipline.com. She really liked it there. She participated heavily and found a lot of like-minded people. They would talk about, like any message board, just the lifestyle. And one of the things that everybody seems to like the most is the nightlife. Morgan told me with much delight a story of when she and Daryl and some friends went to a concert, My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. And he had her on a leash, a leather leash and collar, and put her up on the speakers to dance. And the band saw her and brought her on stage where she danced as long as she wanted to. Things were pretty great for Morgan, and for Spike too, I guess. He still carried on with his permanent relationship he had at the time. Morgan was fine to be his part-time person, although she cared a lot more for him than he did for her. But he allowed her feelings to grow. He allowed her, and he not just allowed her, but fed her addiction to him as time went on, and he knew it was getting worse. And while he would admonish her for going overboard in her affections or what have you, he would still feed it and allow it and let it happen. They could only spend so much time around each other, and then Spike would take off. And it went like this for years. He'd be around for a while, he'd be gone for a while. He'd be around for a while, he'd be gone for a while. And I've asked her how she felt about that, and the best way I can, what I understand is that she just grew used to it. Because, if it was me, I'd be like, well, even in my younger years, I would have just been like, okay. But even if I was into that kind of stuff, because I rode motorcycles when I was a teenager and I was in my young adulthood, those guys aren't, they're kind of flighty too. So, but you have to put your foot down at some point. You have to say, enough is enough. But for some reason, Morgan didn't have that enough is enough button. And then pretty soon, she was pregnant. Spike did not want to be a father, however, and very quickly exited Morgan's life. He went to Florida, and, he was a crap dad. He took off on his daughter. He stayed gone. And then Morgan, whenever she had the baby, she kind of made everything worse, if you can. But when she had the baby, she came back with the proof of fatherhood. But she also came back with where she had changed her own last name from Hughes to Smith, Spike's last name. He wasn't pleased. She said she did it because she wanted to have the same last name as her daughter. He wasn't pleased. It did not take long before she packed up and went to Florida chasing after Spike. Well, when she got there, she not only had to deal with Spike, but also his new girlfriend, Andrea. Andrea was aware that Spike had children, or had a child, by Morgan. And she was aware of their lifestyle, of how they had been together, and how Morgan considered herself his slave. So, Morgan wasn't giving up. She came all the way from Connecticut to Florida. She meant to be with this man. In her mind, they were a family. And, he let her believe it. He would leave. He wasn't kind to her, but he was kind enough to manipulate her mental state, knowing that she wasn't completely there mentally from all of her diagnoses. He kept her with just enough hope to stick around. So she gets down there, and for a while, because he can't help himself, he will just take whatever's offered to him. And Morgan's all about offering. For a while, he dated both of them, and they both went along with it. Eventually, though, Morgan felt like Andrea was getting the better end of the deal. He wasn't spending holidays with her. He was not spending birthdays with her or his daughter. He was becoming more and more absent. And although she was used to this, and he had done this their entire relationship together, because they had the daughter now, she felt that things should be different, and he should act different, and that they were a family, and she was in the way. And then, there's things that, and let me say I have not proven this yet, but Morgan told me, and I can say this, Morgan told me that Andrea would drive around and try to pick her daughter up after school. When she'd be walking, she would drive up to her and try to get her in the car. And, and as she would harass her. She would call her out every day and harass her on the phone, or hang up, or drive by the house, or send threatening text messages. So it wasn't just Morgan at this point. They were sort of antagonizing each other over this man. And when Andrea approached Morgan's daughter, it was too much for her. It set her off the deep end. So she set up this meeting. She texted Andrea and told her to meet her I think it was at their at Morgan's apartment complex, or it was at a park nearby there. So Andrea agrees, and she shows up, and I know it started at the apartment because they were at Morgan's apartment, and Morgan said, "Well, let's go take a walk and talk about this, and talk about Daryl and the mess with him." So Andrea goes out the door first, and then Morgan takes the hatchet and puts it in her clothes underneath her shirt. And then they go out for their walk. The conversation gets heated. Everybody gets ticked off. They get mad at each other. And then Morgan pulls out the hatchet and whacks Andrea with it. Okay, she said that she did not mean to hurt her, and if she had she would have killed her. She hit her with the blunt end, not the sharp end. And from what she says, it was for effect. She wanted to scare her. She wanted her to leave Spike alone. But she hit her with the axe, with the hatchet, and then she ran off. Andrea ran away. So Morgan goes back to her apartment, and as she assumed, just as she thought, and of course, as I would have done, Andrea goes to the police. Andrea takes the hatchet and goes to the police, and Morgan goes back to her apartment. So when the police see Andrea, she has the hatchet. She tells them what happened, and they send a cop to Morgan's apartment. They get to the apartment, and Morgan is calm. She acts like just everything's normal. And they ask her if she attacked Andrea with a hatchet. She says yes, she did. So they arrest her and they take her to jail. They later find out that there was a well check done on her earlier that day because she'd been acting so crazy. And the well check, they decided that the social services decided she was fine, and they let her be. Well, then she ended up attacking with the hatchet. So she eventually bonded out, and then a couple months later went and purchased a gun, although she was awaiting trial for these felony charges for attacking Andrea with the hatchet. Here's some video I cut from the evidence files of Daryl talking about the hatchet.
In and out of my house because I know she's a fucking lunatic. Mm. And we try to explain this to everybody that we've talked to since she came down here. Since she attacked Andrea from behind with a hatchet, Did
she actually hit her, or she was going after her with it?
No, she hit her. She hit her 3 times with a hatchet.
Yeah.
And they just let her go.
Right.
She didn't half-assly. She did it with a blunt instrument. Why she picked a hatchet, I don't know.
Right.
But you have to go through those records again. But it's just it's a mess.
Now, were you going back and forth between the two girls?
And ever since Thanksgiving, I wasn't seeing both of them together anymore.
Things just got worse and worse and worse as far as Morgan was concerned. After Thanksgiving of that year, she showed up over and over doing all kinds of crazy crap, trying to kill herself, etc., until Spike's roommate called the police on her. And then finally, March 28th, 2010,
Morgan
she
is
lost
about to spin out of control.
It would potentially be more emotionally painful for a slave to be abandoned by her master, because so much of the submissive's life is in orbit around their master. If you were already unstable in certain ways, it could certainly push you to a dangerous degree.
Here's how Daryl described it in the emergency room.
The Detective Thorman, Northport Police Department, conducting an interview with Daryl Smith at Bayfront Medical Center in St. Petersburg. It is 3/28/2010 at 4:42 a.m. Sir, can you state your name and date of birth for the record, please?
Daryl P. Smith.
Okay. Daryl, can you tell me what happened tonight?
I was coming home from my neighbor's house next door. I opened up the screen door, and it felt and smelled like a large fireworks. Like maybe someone held a quarter stick of dynamite to my shoulder, and then I dropped.
People that were with Andrea and Spike tackled Morgan, sat on her till the police came, and took her to jail. That's the end of her crimes. Typically, that's where I end these videos because I'm not the trial person. But she has a really interesting trial. She had a mistrial and some crazy things came up. And I do have access to all of her court records and police files and everything. So if y'all want to know about that, leave me a comment and I'll fill you in. Otherwise, sadly, Morgan is not getting the mental help that she needs in prison. I wish that she was. I wish that every woman that I've spoken about on this channel was getting the mental help that they need. But our criminal justice system is about retribution and revenge, and it's not about solving problems. Thanks for watching, and I hope you come back again.